Hello, and welcome to episode 235 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. This is the last episode of 2020. What a year it has been. I probably don't need to sort of like break it down. This is more of a note to myself if I'm ever watching these streams in the future and like looking back, what was 2020 like? 2020 was pretty rough. This has been a rough year. And I've been streaming from home, and it's been relatively stable. But let's hope 2021 is a better year. Fingers crossed. What are we doing today? Let me share my screen. So today is December 16th, 2020, episode 235. A reminder: no plan survives breakfast. That's a lesson that I hope all of us have learned in 2020. If you had plans, no plan survives breakfast. So I have a sense of what I want to do today, but I don't know exactly what order they're going to go in or whether or not it'll work out. I don't have any of what I'm saying is not scripted or written down. I'm just kind of like doing software development off the cuff, which means that I might work on something. I might get stuck. I might get sidelined. I might get distracted. I might get it wrong. And that's okay. That's what I'm trying to capture here, is me just doing my job. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at here on my screen is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description for a link. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it'll be somewhere in the video description. I don't know where it is. And if you're watching this on Twitch, let me just drop it into the Twitch chat. There you go. Baba Booey. There's your agenda link. There is an episode guide, and that's where I want to start today. A big thank you. 2020 has been, pretty crazy, but one of the things that's been so consistent is SmurfD, who has been contributing to the episode guide. SmurfD, probably the primary prolific contributor to the episode guide. And I wanted to say thank you, SmurfD, for all your work this year and in past years. Got it. Okay. And apparently there's a potential security vulnerability in one of my dependencies, but because this is a static website, I'm not too worried about that. I'll look at that later. But let's take a look at the pull request for the episode guide. So SmurfD has sent us episodes 232, 233, and 234. Let's see here. Let's start by looking at episode 232. So this was recorded on November 18th. That is correct. 232 was November 18th. And let's just make sure that the links are right. That looks right here. We'll make sure that the Evernote is correct. Yes. And what did we cover? SpiderMonkey. We talked a little bit about SpiderMonkey Warp. And we talked a little bit about Mercurial. And I went on holiday, and we were looking at that crash, that async shutdown timeout, which has been fixed. And we also talked about HG commit interactive, which if you're used to git commit or git rebase interactive, that is probably not a super unusual experience of HG commit interactive. This looks good. I like this. I'm going to approve these changes. I probably didn't actually need to do that. I don't think there's anything that blocks me from just merging, but I'll approve them nonetheless. And I'm going to merge this change in and say thank you. So that was episode 232. Let's take a look at the other pull request. That's got episodes 233 and 234. There were two files changed here. We got 233 here. That was December 2nd, 2020. That's correct. We've got a proper link there for Air Mozilla, and then we're gonna just quickly check the Evernote link. Yep, that's right. And then let's see, we were talking about Alessandro Castellani, who apparently, I think there was some kind of shout out to Joy of Coding on that stream. Someone highlighted, I think it was actually Danny Colin, who like cross promoted me. Thank you very much, Danny Colin, for the shout out on Alessandro Castellani's stream. That was very generous of you. But you can watch session 1 and session 2 and session 3 and session 4 on YouTube right now. We also were talking about the pip player and the opacity problem, which has since been fixed and has recently been uplifted to beta. Excuse me. And I had issues with running mock Moki test, and I don't remember what they were, but I think we ended up pushing past it, and then mock busted. I think I ended up having to do a clobber build, if I remember correctly. But that all looks good. Let's now look at episode 234. That was December 9th. Correct. And let's see here. We'll look at the link to the agenda. Yes. Pandemic Edition, second last episode of the year. We're really doing a countdown. The Evernote has updated. That's correct. The first minute or so, my mic was too far away. I hope it's better now. We looked at the BHR dashboard. We reviewed some patches, and I did a rap for my Uncle Mark. So I got a message from my Uncle Mark saying he appreciated it. So that was for you, Uncle Mark. And let's see. I think that's good. Let's merge that in. Thank you so much, Smurf D. I'll just go ahead and merge that. Booyah. Always thank your contributor. So just sort of more cross promotion. It seems like Alessandro Castellani, who has been working on Thunderbird, streams most Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern time. No, sorry, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So you should follow this person, Alessandro Castellani. The videos are here. Yeah, 5 days ago, Thunderbird live hacking number 4. This is great. So this is going to give you a completely different take on on hacking on the sort of the Mozilla code base, because I mean Thunderbird and Firefox are cousins, or siblings rather. So you know, I'm going to probably be watching some of Alessandro's videos. Castellani? Yeah, I got that right. Thunderbird live hacking streams. I'm going to be watching some of these over the holidays probably, just to make sure that I've got like all of the techniques. You know, maybe there's some techniques that Alessandro's using that I want to steal. What is it? Great artists steal? There's I don't remember what the first half of that quote is, but great artists steal is the punchline. And so, yeah, just steal good ideas and techniques from other people. That's how I'm gonna roll. So a couple things I want to do today. First is I have a patch that has gotten review, but I have some review feedback to apply, so I'm hoping we can do that today. Sorry, I'm super sparkly. I don't know if you can tell, my shirt's super sparkly. I'm gonna zip. You know what it is? I made the mistake of wearing a green shirt today. I'm gonna zip up my hoodie, and that will hopefully be less of an issue. And maybe if I quickly alter the camera white balance, that will also fix things. 1 second. Turn off auto white balance. There you go. There you go. Less sparkly. My chair is a little sparkly, but that's all right. Yeah, so I've got this patch to ensure the menu bar is using title case. So the menu bar, just so we're clear, that's this thing on Mac OS up here, file, edit, view, history, all of these things. On Windows, we have a menu bar. You probably haven't seen it because it's not on by default. Hold on a second, let me just log in here. Scuba doo 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 doo. Doo 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 doo. Yeah, good artists copy, great artists steal. That's Pablo Picasso who said that. So I was looking at, yeah, the menu bar, and the menu bar is hidden by default, but if you press Alt on Windows, you get the menu. Oh, whoopsie daisy. You get the menu bar here, and it's not really liking our remote desktop in. Mac OS is like, do you mean me? And no, I don't mean you. I'm trying to access the menu bar up here. So this is the menu bar, and that's something that you can actually enable by default if you right click on this space and choose menu bar, or if you go to customize and you turn on the menu bar right here, you can have it on by default. But by default we don't show it. But regardless, one of the things that we're trying to do is be more consistent with our text and our typography, and one of the things that we're trying to do is transition more of our built-in menus to sentence case. And if you're not sure what sentence case is like the first word and any proper nouns inside of a phrase of more than one word is capitalized, but then all the other words are not capitalized. So we've got like title case here, because if you see new private window, each Word is capitalized, new, private, and window, logins and passwords. But there's a little bit of inconsistency. If we go to help, for example, let me see if I can find an inconsistency. Hold on, web developer. I'm sure we've got some inconsistencies somewhere. Library. Where was it? I thought I saw it. Was it? Well, we've got from is lowercase inside this sense, and that's not import from another browser is mostly in title case, but that F is that should be capitalized. Same with this with W, because the APA style for title case is any any word that's longer than than 3 letters should probably be capitalized. There are some exceptions, but not many of them. And I think all of the exceptions are 1 to 3 letters. Anything with more than 3 letters is supposed to be capitalized. Anyway, so I've got a patch that tries to make that more consistent and writes a test so that we don't accidentally introduce anything that's not title cased into the menu bar in the future. Now, to be clear, what I'm talking about the menu bar here, the menu bar, not other menus, because there are other menus in Firefox that we might want to be in sentence case and not title case. So, for example, in the bookmarks toolbar, I think we've got some examples. Whoopsie daisy. I did not mean to open that GIF. Fortunately, that was a benign gift. Hang on a second. I'm trying to find one of those places where we have an inconsistency. Because there are some places. Container, manage containers. There are places. Oh, Pizza Pocket asks, what is the paper airplane next to Pocket? You are probably referring here. Let me close a bunch of tabs. Close other tabs. You're probably referring to here. If I go to this kale salad Pocket thing, you're referring to this paper airplane. I have an add-on installed called Share Backported, and allows me to post a page to all of these social network sites. So if we go to addons.mozilla.org, you can go to Share Backported. Yeah, this is the add-on. So if you're interested in that, it's a very nice add-on if you happen to like to share things. Share Backported. Okay, so anyways, I've got a patch that makes it so that we use title case inside the menu, and then we're probably going to want to switch to sentence casing inside any of our built-in menus. And the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is actually readability and speed, is like ease of reading. Let me give you an example. Medium, sentence, where is it? Title case. There's a good, what was the sentence? What is it? Sentence case. There was an an article that I'm trying to link to. Let me see if I can find it. Sentence case versus title case. Making a case for letter case. This is the interesting article. So check this out. And basically, it's talking about capitalization and defaults and readability and the ease of reading and the flow of reading. And one of the things that it argues for, and for which I agree, is that sentence case is actually easier to read. It's less of there's less cognitive overhead, which is a little tricky because on certain operating systems, title case is the preferred that's the preferred capitalization. So we're going to continue to use title case in the menus, in the native menus, but for Firefox's built-in menus, we're likely going to switch to sentence case because they're easier to read. And there are, it's easier to pick out things that are like proper nouns if not everything is capitalized. So there's a whole argument about that in here, and I will link to it. Title case versus here, sentence case. This is one article that tries to like argue for sentence case. So we've got this patch here. Let me show you the patch. I've actually posted it to Fabricator, and we can take a look at the. We can take a look at it already. I've already gotten review across the board, but that review had some nits and feedback that I want to apply before landing. So I'll show you how the patch works. Sorry, I realize my head's in the way. If my head's ever in the way of something, you know, let me know. Maybe what I'll do is I'm going to shrink myself down a little bit. I'm just going to be real small in the corner right now. Real tiny. Hello, I'm smaller. Hang on, I can do that more. Hello. Okay, enough messing around. So how does this work? So we've added a new Moki test browser test here called browser title case menus. And what we're using is, I'm saying that we want to make sure that we're using APA style title case strings where appropriate. And in particular, what we're testing is the menus. And so what we do is, there are a bunch of like helper utilities in here, but effectively what we do is we open up, or we get access to the main menu bar, and then we iterate the menus inside the main menu bar, and then we ensure that all of them are in title case. Now this test only runs in ENUS, and that's very important. So Firefox is translated into a bunch of different languages, lots and lots of different languages. Like I think could be over 100. I'm not entirely certain. It's certainly over 50. And a bunch of them are in languages where like capitalization either A, does not apply, or B, has a very specific meaning, or C, just like title case or sentence case doesn't make any sense. You know, the rules are very different from locale to locale and language to language. We have to be very sensitive about that. So we're not saying that every locale is going to be in title case in the menu bar. It's where it makes sense. And in English, English CA, English US, English GB, and all of the English locales, we're going to be asking the localizers in those locales to switch to title case for the menu bar. But for everyone else, it's like, you know, do what makes sense for your locale. And this test will only ever run on ENUS, because that's generally what we start with. We start with ENUS, and then the localizers translate into the other languages. And that's just because of history. So that's how this test more or less works. And you know, there's a bunch of utilities here. One that like will take a menu bar, and it will it's a generator. It will like yield the individual menu pop-ups underneath a menu bar so we can quickly iterate them. This one will go through the child items of a menu pop-up looking for things with labels, and then it checks that they're in title case. Title case will like split off the first word and make sure that it's capitalized, and then go through the other words and make sure that they're capitalized except for these ENUS words. And yeah, that's basically how the test works. And then over here, I added a note to the ENUS locale saying, hey, this should be an API style title case, and please don't reuse these strings outside of the menu bar. Because that's the other thing. We're going to be making sure that the menu bar is in title case, and we don't want to accidentally reuse those strings elsewhere. And then like, try and make it so that it's sentence case. Like, we need to make sure that the menu bar stays title case and everything else uses sentence case. So if the menu bar ever if an engineer in the future ever wants to use the string import from another browser in a place where they want to use sentence case, they have to just create a new string instead of reusing this one. And so we ended up, as part of this, fixing some inconsistencies here. You know, some letters that probably should have been capitalized but weren't. Those have been fixed. So that's the patch. And now I want to go through the fixes, or the feedback from my reviewers. So this was the feedback. Heis says, my reviewer here, he's one of my colleagues, Heis, great reviewer. He says, just some minor nits on some of the details in the test. Do we also need to pop-up hiding and pop-up hidden again? That's a good point, because one of the things we do is whenever these pop-ups, these menu pop-ups show, before we show them, we, sorry, the dog is punching the door. I think he's trying to get out. One moment. Here, do you need to get out, bud? All right. There you go. Out you go. Sorry about that. Oh no! The green screen. 1 second. So fragile. Literally held together with elastic bands. Let me just put this back up. Hold on. And the dog is back. This is hilarious. All right. Just gonna get through here. So fragile. Okay. So before we show the menu pop-up, what are you eating? What did you find to eat? Hey. Oh, hey, what did you find? Hold on a second. Sorry, folks. This is crazy. Did you just eat her sandwich? Doggo. Oh, darn dog. Sorry, folks. Doggo just ate something probably shouldn't have eaten. But Doggy was definitely hungry and took advantage of the fact that I was hidden behind this green screen to totally snipe some of my my wife's sandwich, and it's gone now. He's eaten it, and well, what are you gonna do? All right, let's proceed. So we have a menu pop-up, and we fire these events: menu pop-up showing and pop-up shown. And those events normally fire whenever you open up a menu. And the reason we do that is so that on demand, like whenever the menu is being shown by the user, we can like do things like populate the menu. It gives JavaScript an opportunity to do stuff with the menu. And so we are faking it out. We're firing the events manually here. Like we're faking out firing those events because, what are you doing? Okay, good. Because we can't actually open these menu pop-ups on Mac OS. We end up on Mac OS. Mac OS is special because we don't actually even though we define the menus using Zool, on Mac OS we take all of the descriptions of the menus and we turn them into the native menu bar at the top of the window here. And the menu pop-ups that are actually being shown are like these are native menus. These are not Zool menus. Oh, hey, get off. Hold on. Sorry, folks. Hey, buddy. All right, come on. Let's get you out of here. Doggo. What a hilarious end of the year. Doggo's still hungry. Doggo decided to climb up and try and go for sandwich part 2. I really put it at the back of the back of her desk, and he just went for it, just lunged. And luckily, I heard him. Doggo's not supposed to be having that kind of food. All right. Anyways. Doggo has dietary requirements. What a rascal. Absolutely. Total rascal. Normally he's so like, he's very quiet and he's an older fellow. And he's normally not so spry, but every now and then he'll surprise us. He like waits until the prime moments when both of us are like concentrated on something, and then he'll strike. And that's exactly what happened just now. He knew I was behind this curtain. I couldn't see him, and he just went for it. He's very clever. Okay, so we fire these events, and I'm firing the showing and the shown events, and there are other events for whenever the pop-up is going away, in case you wanted to clean things up after the pop-up goes away. And Heis is saying we might want to fire those as well, and he's right. And the other thing we should probably do, this was another suggestion he had later on, was like, maybe we want to actually do this test on a brand new window. Like, instead of using the pre-existing browser window, let's open up a brand new window, check its menus, fire those events, and then close the window and throw it away, just so that we don't accidentally create some leftover state that's going to wreck the expectancies, the expected behavior of a future test that might run in the same session. So I think that's a good idea. Let's do both of those things. Let's start there, actually. We'll start by opening up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by closing all of these files. I've got too many files open. So close. I don't need any of these right now. Don't save. Don't save. Okay. And we're going to start by editing the new test here called browser title case menus. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, instead of going to the main menu bar of the test, the primary test window, we're gonna open up a brand new window. So let's say, hopefully you can see this. There's a test utility inside of the browser test utils module, which I'll be using to open up a new window. So open new window, or new window. Wait for new window. Waits for a new window to be opened. There's also open window, or a window. Come on. DOM window opened. Create window. What is it? Wait for new window. That's what I'll look for here. What's the best way to do this? I mean, certainly, what's going on here? Why is this so hard? There was definitely a way of doing this. I'm just trying to find it. Let's go to browser test utils again. It's somewhere in here. Browser open. New navigator. There's like window closed with new tab. It'll be somewhere in here, I think. With new tab, open new foreground tab. Let's just scan through here. Is hidden, is visible, get browsing context from, switch tab, browser loaded, first browser loaded, wait for browser state change, browser stop, browser started, wait for new tab, wait for location change, wait for new window, load URI, create preloaded browser, DOM window closed, open new browser window. That's what we wanted. New win, open new browser window. So that's what we're going to use. So new win equals open new browser window. We await, and so new win becomes our window. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that the menu toolbar is actually new win's document. New win document get element by ID main menu bar. And we'll scan that, and then when our test is done, we have to close this window. So there is a similar utility called close window. We just pass in the window that we're trying to close, and that closes the window. So let us now rerun the test. Mock monkey test. What's it called again? Browser. Sorry, I'm still like really distracted because the doggo was going for that sandwich. So distracted. Such a rascal. Okay, so you see a new window got opened there, and then we run the test on it, and then we pass the test and close the window, and we're done. So that's done. That part of the test is done. The other thing we want to do is we want to fire pop-up hiding, pop-up hidden after the menu closes. Pop-up hidden. Just for good measure, we'll fire the pop-up hiding, pop-up hidden, not pup. I've got dogs on the brain. Pop-up hidden events after we close the menu pop-ups. Yeah, so that's done. That's done. Photon style title case. Right, that's what I want to mention. Oh, and I want to fix that with prettier. And just now I was using the Sublime Text Prettier plugin to correct a sort of a JS style issue. So that's handy. And then Heiss asks about Photon style title case, because it does exist. Photon style definition. Firefox, Photon style, capitalization. Capitalization. Title case. Photon style title case. I will add a link. This Photon style title case is in here, is defined here. It's a little more lax on which short words can be can keep a lowercase first letter. APA is more strict, and what we should follow for native menus. Follow for native menus. Yeah. I'll also mention, I'll add a link to the Photon title case document here. So that's done. So done. Then a comment here about why we need to treat the words separately might be useful. Okay. So we extract the first word and always expect it to be capitalized, even if it's a short word like one of minor words. Done. And then the last thing, it probably doesn't matter in practice, but splitting on regex this is the regex for white space, seems slightly more resilient. Could also explicitly error on non-space white space or consecutive white space, though I recognize that's a little different from what we're trying to do here. Up to you, but as it is, if we have non-space or consecutive white space, so word might start with a white space or be an empty string, and I don't know how understandable resulting failures would be. As is, if we have a non-space or consecutive white space, so word might start with white space or be an empty string. Oh, that's true. That's true. So splitting on a regular expression of this might be more resilient. I agree. I can do that, right? Can I pass a regex to split? JavaScript string.prototype split. Can I pass a regular expression? Separator can be a simple string or it can be a regular expression. Okay, good. So we'll split on the white space. And I will mention good idea on splitting on that. We'll use. So that, I believe, takes care of all of the issues that Heiss raised. Let's take a quick peek at our differences. Tim asks, hey Mike, can you make it more performant to have 63,000 options in a select box? This dumb digital asset management puts all our 64,000 options into a select. That's a lot of options. I I mean, that's very much a what we would call a degenerate case, a stress test, a degenerate case. It's like the sort of thing where, like, holy smokes, you're probably using the wrong UI. Do we want to optimize for that? Select bug, select many options. There is a bug on trying to improve the performance by, like, batching information about what's in the select dropdown rather than, like, sending it all in one big chunk to the parent, but doing it in batches. But I would not consider that a huge priority right now. This makes the HTML about 6.3 megabytes big. Yikes. Tim, I would suggest to your digital asset management people, whoever made that, don't use a select dropdown. Use a search field or something. Anything but a select dropdown. 63,000 elements in a select dropdown. Come on. Okay, so we've got our patch here. Let's run the test. This makes the HTML 6.3 megabytes large. Yeah, one thing you, if you know, you can talk to the developers of it. You know, having to ship 6.3 megs to every user of the digital asset management tool, it's probably not great. What you probably want is a search field, and it will, like, hit the server with a search request, a search query, and then send the responses back using, like, an XHR or something. That's probably a better use of bandwidth. It's probably a better user experience. That's what I would recommend, or that's what I would look into, rather than a giant select and sending people 6.3 megs of JavaScript or HTML every time they download the page. Clicking on the select fields results in about 3 seconds of nothing and then a very laggy list. Yep. No surprise. That is not good. That is a big list. All right, I think this patch is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to amend this patch. Put it back up on Fabricator and make myself large again. I'm so small. And now I am normal size. Now I'm humongous. Now I am normal size. And I'm going to put this up on the Fabricator. Submit tip single. Poor doggo. You know what it is he's getting super tired of his kibble. The thing is, we've got a gigantic bag of this kibble. We should probably give him more variety of food, but he's really not supposed to have people food. Not because, I mean, yes, you really probably shouldn't give your dog people food, but also because his stomach is very sensitive. And even though he's so hungry for people food, it just makes him throw up. So we don't want him to have people food. Hopefully he doesn't throw up later today. I think he just had the top layer of bread from the sandwich, so he's probably going to be okay. If he'd gotten the meat or the cheese, he'll probably throw up, but I think he's going to be okay. Okay, so I think we got our changes here. We got all of our issues are done. I think we can go ahead and land this. So the way you land these things is you go view stack and lando. And then I'm going to preview the landing. And I fixed some nits, and you know, no one has reviewed those changes, but because I'm an L3 contributor and almost certainly not trying to burn our source code to the ground, it allows me to just be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. So land and integration. Okie doke. So that's done. What else did I want to do today? Well, the other thing that we could do is there's the work of switching the app menu to sentence case And there's an interesting challenge there. I can actually show you some of the test failures that we already have, because I wrote a test for this. I can rebase. Here, let me pump up the font so you can see this better. Sorry. So I'm going to rebase this change on top of this one. Rebase that on top of tip. And let's take a look at that test. 63,000 entries in that select dropdown. What? So I already, I think, corrected a number of elements or strings, and I wrote this test. Sentence case is an interesting one, though, actually. So let me build, and then we'll talk a little bit about sentence case. So title case is reasonably straightforward because most things are going to be capitalized. Most words in title case are going to be capitalized. It's only those few exceptions, these words that are like article words, like a, and, as, but, like these sorts of like articles, or there's the APA style guide has very specific definitions for these types of words. Articles, short conjunctions, and prepositions, short prepositions. So any of those really short things don't need to be capitalized. Now, for sentence case, this digital asset management is not very nicely programmed anyway. For example, when uploading a PDF, uses a command line tool, PDF to text, to get all the words from the PDF. Then it puts all these words into the DB. Referencing the new resource for a PDF, so it can take between 3 and 6 minutes. Yikes. Everyone hates their CMS. All I want for Christmas is a decent digital asset management tool. What was I talking about? Oh, so title case is actually reasonably straightforward. Sentence case, that's more interesting. So sentence case, what you're doing is you're taking strings, and most of the words are actually going to have their initial letter in lowercase. That's easy to do, but it's the exceptions. It's the exceptions that we have to watch out for. So there are certain nouns, like we will want to have like proper names capitalized. And thankfully in our strings, we know that there aren't too many proper nouns, but there are certainly some, or like brand names, for example. So let's take a look at the test that I wrote. So I hard code in things that are like brand names or names of things. Mozilla, Nightly, Firefox, Pocket, Fission. These things are capitalized. And then there are phrases. App mode is a phrase where the individual words, like mode, I don't know if we'd want to capitalize that on its own, but whenever it's part of this phrase, then we capitalize it. And then we go through all these different views and we start testing them and making sure that they are capitalized. So let's take a look. Moki test. We're going to run this test. Browser, sentence, case, strings. They are also apparently using SVN, the subversion that we're talking about, the digital asset management tool. They use SVN and they hope the developers send their diffs via email. So this is a digital asset management tool from the 90s or the early 2000s is what I'm hearing. So what we're seeing is the test going through each of the subviews in the menu recursively. We have to open it up in order to make it populate, because some of these things are, some of the menus, the subviews are lazy in that they only populate themselves with the items whenever they're opened and visible. So we have to open them and make them visible. And we only have 2 failures. There are a number of things that are expected failures because there are some strings that we have to decouple. One of the things to point out is that like the web developer item here and all of these strings are shared with the strings under this web developer menu. These strings are all pointing to the same like key value pair, and that's not going to work because we know that the menu bar needs to be in title case and we want to be in sentence case over here. So toggle tools, that tools word, the second word needs to be lowercased in the menu over here. So we actually need to fork the strings. Tim says that the first version of that digital asset management tool is 2006. Cool. Cool. I mean, it's impressive that it's still you know, alive and kicking and it's still working. You know, that actually says something about the web and how the web is remarkably backwards compatible. You can view a website that was initially built in 2006 and is still using like 2006 style technology. I think it's wild. Now I don't actually know if I want to work on this thing just yet. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, but I want to briefly pause because this is the last episode of the year. I know I'm kind of scattered. I'm all over the place. But I wanted to take a pause here because I asked you, my beloved viewers, like, what do you want to see for the last episode of the year? And I got a bunch of different ideas and a bunch of different feedback. And one of the ideas that came out of this was, someone asked, show us the development tools you like to use and why you use them. Sorry, switching back to the chat for a second. Email diffs is more popular than I'd like. For instance, the Linux kernel still uses it. Yes, the Linux kernel is famous for this. You know, modern code review tools like ReviewBoard and Fabricator and Garrett. For the longest time, people would just email patches and review them inline in their email on a mailing list, which is hilarious. Maybe made sense back in the day. It just doesn't work now. Like, I guess you can make it work. That's how the Linux kernel works, but it's like, why would you? It's like watching the people using very primitive technology. It's like watching someone like with a horse and buggy along the side of a highway. Like, yeah, okay, that is allowing you to go to point B, and you are allowed to choose that. That's fine. But also there's a bus. You can ride a bike. There's lots of choices. You don't just have to take the horse anymore. All right. Anyways, show us the development. While we're talking about like VCSs and tools and stuff, show us the development tools you like to use and why you like them. So that is something that someone requested as something that I can do for this final episode of the year. And so let's do that. Let's start with Evernote. So I've been using Evernote as my like note-taking tool for a long time. If we take a look at my first notes, where would my first notes be? I'll have a date of like, let's look at closed bugs, for example. This probably is my longest list. And what's the date on my oldest note here? July 23rd, 2014. So I've been using Evernote since at least 2014. So that's 6 years almost. We're coming up on 6 years. And this is all because of a movie I watched, actually. Like, I always knew that I liked to take notes. I always knew that, programming, what I'd normally do is I'd jot things down in my text editor. I'd like open up a new tab, or I'd open up like a text edit inside macOS, and I'd just like paste stuff in there and notes to myself for a particular bug. And then when I was done with the bug, I'd throw it away. And what I realized is that note taking is actually a hugely powerful technique for dealing with bugs. Not only for dealing with bugs, but doing code archaeology, understanding decisions that you made in the past, and also to remember what you were doing. So for example, I've got this big list of active bugs. A lot of these bugs I actually haven't touched in a long time. I need to clean this out. But I've usually got like 4 or 5 bugs on the go at one time. And I'm context switching between them so that whenever I'm blocked on one, I can work on another. Context switching is something that you kind of have to do in this field, unless you're just working on this one thing and you're never blocked. Oftentimes I'm blocked. And if you are working solo, you probably don't have to context switch. You can just like work on your one thing until it's done, and then you work on the next thing. But when you're working on a team, you need to wait on other people to provide you information or assets or something, and you are blocked, then you have to switch to another task. You will context switch. It's just part of the job. And context switching can be cognitively expensive. And so one of my ways around that is to use note-taking to help me remember what I was doing. So, some of my notes are better than others. I think I was actually like better at taking notes back in the day. If I take a look at some of my closed bugs, let's go back to the very early bugs in like 2016. I've got some bugs that are like a little more wordy than others, but I'll just like dump information in them about what it was that I was doing. Maybe, the needs export ones are the ones that I think are needs export. These are the ones that I find are usually the most like interesting. They're ones I've identified as like, this would be good to post on a blog or something. So like really long notes. It's almost like a stream of consciousness of my problem solving and my investigation. And I said that this is all based on a movie because it was. I was watching a movie called Hot Fuzz, which if you haven't seen it and you've got some time on your hands and you enjoy Edgar Wright and Nick Frost and Simon Pegg, Hot Fuzz is a great film. There's a scene in that film. They're police officers. They're detectives in like the Cotswolds or somewhere in the UK. And Simon Pegg, who plays Nicholas Angel, he's one of the detectives or the police officers. He's got his notepad and he says, "This is the most important tool that I use." And he uses it to like completely disarm some person who was getting a traffic ticket. But he says, "This is the most important tool that I use. I didn't draw my gun. I didn't like use excessive force. I used my notepad." And for some reason, because this is a comedy film, this is not like a serious cop film. It's not like a crime documentary or anything, or a detectives. It's not real detectives. This is a comedy movie. But it really stuck with me because he's right. Like, your notes are really, really powerful. They're notes to yourself. It can remind you, like, they call it computer science. Whenever, like, that's what I studied in school. But when you're doing software development, you might not feel like you're doing science, and sometimes you aren't, but you can apply the scientific method to investigate bugs. And oftentimes that's what I'm doing. And by scientific method, it's like develop a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, write down the results. What's your conclusion from the test? Like, develop a test for your hypothesis. Was your hypothesis, did the conclusion support the hypothesis, or does it refute the hypothesis? And adjust your hypothesis accordingly, like develop another hypothesis. And then you can slowly start developing this greater understanding of the model of all of the components. Because honestly, that's what finding a bug is like understanding the ecosystem of things that are all talking to one another and understanding how this invisible system all works. And so when you take notes and you do these hypotheses and tests, you're helping to sort of like get a high resolution picture of the invisible ecosystem of the software that you're working with. And so that's one reason why you use notes. And I use Evernote. There are lots of different note-taking tools. There's like Google Keep, and I think Microsoft has one. I've started to use Joplin for my own personal note-taking. Joplin's great. I actually highly recommend Joplin. It's free. It's open source. It does like synchronization with a number of storage backends. It's not tied to a single service. One of the nice things about Evernote is that I can share the notes very easily, just like publish them like this. And then they're like, I can share them and they're nicely formatted like this, so that I can share them with you. So that's one of the main reasons that I use Evernote. And also because I would normally use Joplin for work, except that since Joplin is where I do my personal note taking, I wouldn't want to mix work and personal. So it's nice to have that separation. And Evernote has a number of other properties that's nice. You can like tag the notes. I have different notebooks for like the big categories, but I can tag things that like are waiting on review or I'm waiting on a try build. I've like got a bunch of tags down here. What are they? Blocked on approval, blocked on hardware if I'm waiting for a piece of hardware, blocked on a local build, blocked on merge. Like, why am I blocked? Why is this particular issue blocked? And lots of different things that maybe unsolved mysteries is one of my tags. I've only got one thing in here. Unsolved mysteries looks like a Talos regression back in 2016. This is probably an unsolved mystery that will never be solved. Maybe if I look at it now, I can figure it out, but it's probably closed long ago because the code's changed. What else? It's got powerful search. I think that's pretty... I don't use Evernote for anything like super powered. I don't use it for... Like, there are a bunch of features that I just don't use. But for what I do use it for, it's quite good at it. But I could use Joplin for the same thing. The only reason I haven't switched to Joplin is because of the document sharing, the publishing, as well as the separation of work and personal. But I'm, if Evernote were suddenly like, guess what, you have to pay $20 a month for this, then I'd say, no, okay, I'm good. It's not worth that much to me, and I would switch. I'd start up like a second Joplin instance or something. If you're interested in checking out Joplin, because I highly recommend it. It's a free open source tool. You use Markdown, but I think there's also a WYSIWYG editor, and it's cross-platform. It's got like mobile clients, so you can, if you've got your notes being shared on some. I use Nextcloud, for example. I have a Nextcloud instance. If you've got one, you can share your notes and store them there, and it does end-to-end encryption if you really want. It's really nice. It's got a web clipper. There's some really great features, so I would check out Joplin. Evernote's fine too, but check out Joplin. So what was I just working on here? Joplin. Evernote and Joplin. So that's one of my first tools. Other tools. I use Sublime Text. You've probably already noticed I've used Sublime Text. I know that lots of people are using like VS Code and Atom, and they are, there are all these fancy editors like IntelliJ, and maybe you want to use Visual Studio, the old school IDE, or you've got Eclipse. I'm not a huge IDE fan, not because I hate IDEs. I just find that they've always been heavier than I need. I like a simple text editor. Syntax highlighting is great if I can get it. What I really love about Sublime is the fuzzy search, especially in a source project, like a project where the source code, there's just so much of it in the Mozilla Central. The fuzzy search is incredibly powerful. So I can just do Command P, and I want to look for browser.js. And Sublime knows which one I'm probably talking about. I think based on which one I tend to look at. I mean, it found all of these browser.js files, but it like is able to get me to the one I probably care about sooner. And it's rarely wrong. And I really like that. So like the sort of file navigation is really great. I pay for Sublime Text. I've got a license. It's well worth the money. I'm pretty sure it's just one person working on it. And I think Sublime's pretty great. It does a lot of what I need to do. Although if you enjoy VS Code's great too. VS Code has a lot of really interesting capabilities. One of the ones that is really nice, we started to explore it a little bit earlier this year, is you can do like dual coding, like live editing with someone else in the same terminal. So you can connect two instances of Visual Studio Code, and you can sort of almost like a Google shared document. You can edit source code on someone's machine at the same time, which is really great for pairing. That's something that you can do in Visual Studio Code. Danny Colin asks, why don't you use Vim? I do use Vim. I will use Vim on like my virtual machine. So let's talk operating systems for a second. I'm using a MacBook right now. This is a 2000, what era is this? 2018? 2019 MacBook Pro, 16-inch, 64 gigs of RAM, 8-core i9, an AMD Radeon discrete video card. It's a MacBook Pro. I'm running Catalina right now. I should probably get Big Sur at some point, but I'll wait until the holiday to upgrade my operating system. I don't want to waste time dealing with operating system error issues during my working hours. But whenever I sign into so I use a MacBook Pro for a number of reasons. One of the big ones is that I cannot virtualize a Mac. I cannot legally virtualize Apple hardware and run OS X in a virtual machine. Yes, I know it is technically possible, but for my work that's just straight illegal, and I can't do it. And I need to be able to hack on Firefox on Mac OS. I need to be able to make changes and make sure they work properly on Mac OS. So thankfully Mac OS the license rules allow me to virtualize PC hardware. I can virtualize Windows, I can virtualize Linux, and I do virtualize both of those things. And so having a MacBook Pro allows me to have all three operating systems, which is very, very nice. I've got a Think Tower in another room in our apartment here called Dead Parrot. That's running Windows 10. Dead Parrot itself is running VMware Workstation, which I have a license for. It is running. I've got an older version of Ubuntu here. I think I'm running Ubuntu. What is it? Uname LSB. What is it? LSB release A. Yeah, I'm running 1804 Bionic, which is I should probably upgrade. I should also increase the amount of hard drive space that this virtual machine has, but I'll do it sometime. I'm not in a rush. Beast Mode is the virtual machine you might see me SSH into. So I'll SSH into beast mode. And on beast mode, did I get the password right? I didn't. When I'm in, oh, come on. There we go. Whenever I'm in beast mode, I will use Bioboo. You may have seen me use Bioboo or not. Bioboo is it's like Screen or Tmux in that it allows me to have multiple terminals, and I can like detach from the session and then reattach afterwards, which is really nice. So Bioboo is something that comes with Ubuntu. Like you can just install it from the package repository. And I think it's basically a front end to Screen or Tmux. Like you get to choose. It's just got better UI for it. So here's Bioboo. I'm using Ubuntu 18.04 Bionic. I'll use Bioboo. Whenever I'm in my virtual machine like this, I'll use Vim. I'll just use Vim to edit JavaScript like this. My Vim setup is really straightforward. I don't have like all of the Vim superpowers that other people have. I know that some people have memorized all of the keyboard shortcuts to do really powerful things. I watched someone do like really impressive macros in Vim, which is really fancy. It's just I've never bothered. Probably the most powerful thing I can do in Vim is like vertical like column select. Like that's probably the most impressive thing I can do in Vim. What else? What else do I have for tooling? So I talked about Sublime. I've also got VMware Fusion on my my MacBook Pro here. That's to virtualize Windows 7. We still support Windows 7, even though Microsoft has technically stopped supporting it. We still support Windows 7, so I have to have a virtual machine to test Windows 7 stuff. I think my virtual machine also has Windows 8 on it. Yeah, I've got Windows 8 here. We stopped supporting Windows Vista, thankfully. I don't think we do much Windows 8 support, but we still make sure that everything's working okay on Windows 7 for the foreseeable future. If you take a look at the number of users that are using Windows 7 on the hardware report, where is the hardware report? Hardware. So this is the public hardware report of Firefox users. You can take a look at the operating system here, and you can see that slowly but surely Windows 7 is going down to the right. There was like a really steep decline here. I think this is back whenever Microsoft was really pushing, trying to get everyone onto Windows 10. And then it seems to have kind of flattened out. It's still on a sort of a less steep decline. What are we at here? Apparently we're at December 6th. It reports almost 23% of our users are on Windows 7. And we've got like 58, almost 59% on Windows 10. And then there's a long tail. Like we've got just under 5% are on Windows 8. So I guess we still support Windows 8. We may have moved them over to ESR. I don't remember. On Mac OS, if you sum up all the different Mac OSs, I think it comes up to about 5%, maybe a little bit more. And Linux is pretty much the same, actually. When it comes to architecture, we've got, like, most people are on 64-bit these days. That's great. 32-bit has really started to go down. Most people are thankfully they're not using Flash. Well, so 34% of users still have Flash installed, but Flash update. Firefox 84 just went out yesterday. It's the last version where Flash will be enabled. And even if you keep your old version, Adobe has made it so that Flash will just stop working at the end of this year. They don't want to support it anymore. It's done. Flash is over. That's it. And the good news is that it's somewhat, as a browser developer, as someone who works on browsers, I care about browser security and I care about the web. The death of Flash is great news. As someone who really enjoyed Flash content when I was younger, especially, Homestar Runner and Newgrounds and, what was it? Stick Warrior. No, what was it called? There was like a Flash cartoon site that was called like Stick Death. Yeah, it was really like awful stuff, but you know, it was art in some form or another. A lot of it was really funny. Thankfully, there is a new life for Flash. There's this thing called Ruffle.rs. It's a Flash runtime emulator. It's a Flash player emulator built in Rust. It is open source, and it is what is powering a number of sites. So if you go to, let's see here. If you go to the Internet Archive, they've started to host a bunch of these Flash animations, and they're using Ruffle to power them. So you can go to the Internet Archive, which you should totally donate to if you have the funds, and you can watch the Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny, which was a Flash video from Nick Cicerega, Lemon Demon, whatever. You can watch that running in your browser without using Flash, which is incredible. Like, look at me. I'm watching Ultimate Showdown in my browser, and I'm not using Flash. And it works. So that's pretty wild. And if you've got your own Flash content that you want to keep alive, you can just embed it on your site, and you can keep using your Swift files, hopefully. And if that's something you want to contribute to, you can get involved. How to protect, you can also give them money, and they can hire people. But they've already got a number of sponsors. Newgrounds, you know, a number of game makers are sponsoring them. So, you know, there's money behind this, which means it's not going to just kind of like evaporate. This isn't some passion project that someone's doing on the side. They are being paid to do this. So the idea is that this is gonna help keep that content alive and hopefully forever. Okay, other tools that I use. I mean, I use Element as my client for Matrix. That's the default sort of like Matrix is the chat tool that we use at Mozilla, like chat.mozilla.org. You can run it in the browser, but there's a desktop client called Element that I use. I use Signal for personal messaging, but that's not related to work. I'm using OBS right now for streaming. What else is useful? I use Vnc Viewer if I ever need to VNC into a machine. I use iTerm 2. So I don't use the built-in terminal on Mac OS. I've never really liked it. If you look at the built-in, I don't know what they're using, Zish? Like, this is the terminal on Mac OS. It's okay, it gets the job done, but it's pretty bare bones. iTerm 2 is a different terminal, and I like how it looks. I like how it functions. It has memory, it has tabs. I like the search functionality. It's just better in general. So iTerm 2 I really enjoy. Obviously I use Nightly as my default browser. Let's take a look at some of the add-ons that I'm using. Available reads. So a lot of these aren't related to my work. They're just things that I have for my own personal use. But Available Reads allows me to connect my Goodreads to my local public library so that I can see what books that I want to read are available. And that's not just like physical books, but ebooks as well, which is really great for me. I love this add-on because, I just like add stuff to my Goodreads whenever I want to like read stuff. And then I just wait until they're available on my library with Available Reads. It's great. I don't think Chrome Store Foxified works anymore, but I still have it. Maybe it does. I don't know. But this add-on, the whole point of it is to be able to take you to the Chrome add-on store. It will unpackage a Chrome add-on and then just like do a brain transplant, repackage it so that it should run in Firefox. And to some degrees of success. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the APIs that the add-on is using. I am using Coil to try and support people with web monetization. So Coil is if you go to coil.com, they can give you the sales pitch, but effectively, like, there are certain sites, and you yourself can run a site. My blog, for example, does this, where you can set a header and give it like a cryptocurrency endpoint. I'm not huge into cryptocurrencies, but I like the idea of paying people for their content without having to do advertisement and stuff. And Coil is one way of trying to do that. So the way you do it is you pay a subscription to Coil, and then every time you go to a site that is web monetized, Coil will pay them, from that money that you paid them per month. Discard tab is, allows me to right click on a tab and discard it if I want to reclaim memory. Facebook containers is from Mozilla. It helps me isolate Facebook properties from whatever other properties I'm on, because Facebook is insidious and they like to be everywhere, and third-party iframes, I like to contain them. And I don't even have a Facebook account anymore, but I like them to be contained. I don't want them to know what I'm doing. I don't know if this is useful anymore, but I still have it. A lot of this might no longer be necessary. Multi-account containers allows me to have a bunch of different containers and manage them differently. Relay is this thing I'm testing that allows me to have alias email addresses. Firefox Voice Beta allows me to control my browser with my voice. Check this out. Open a tab. Yay. I haven't used it too much. There have been a couple of times where I'll use it if my hands are dirty. I'll I was cooking, and my recipe was on my computer, and there's a key shortcut to do voice. I'm trying to remember what it is. What's the keyboard shortcut? It's command period. So I did command period, and I went, what's 1 cup in milliliters?
236.588 milliliters in 1 microsecond cup.
Awesome, thank you. So, voice beta is kind of interesting. That's something that we're messing around with. In Expo Speed Control, you know what? I wrote this back when we had Air Mozilla 2, but we don't use it in Expo anymore, so I can just disable this. I don't need this anymore. But I wrote this add-on. Don't need it anymore. MyQ Only is an add-on I wrote that lets me keep track of how many reviews I have to do. I've got 2 reviews to do on Fabricator. Notes is a add-on that I think we've stopped maintaining. I don't think we're doing much with notes anymore, but it used to allow me to have notes and then share them, store them in the sync backend. Ono Reflow is a performance analysis tool that allows me to measure synchronous layouts in the parent process. I've got some Fabricator add-ons. Pioneer, what are these? Reddit comment collapser allows me to collapse comments. Remember the Sidebar allows me to have my Remember the Milk to-do list in the sidebar. SearchFox and Fabricator allows me to do searching from Fabricator on SearchFox. So SearchFox is a huge tool. I should have mentioned this. This is my number 1 tool is SearchFox. Maybe you've seen me type DXR in my input in my URL bar and do searches for browser.js. The only reason I'm calling it DXR is because that used to be our code indexing tool, and I just switched it over to use the SearchFox backend to keep the muscle memory. But yeah, SearchFox is amazing. Whenever I'm teaching people how to contribute to Firefox, this is one of the first things I show them. Searchfox.org. Use it to find stuff. Use it if you're looking for example, what is powering report deceptive site, you can start by just typing in the string report deceptive site and see where the string is defined. And here's the key, menu help report deceptive site. And then you can copy that, and then you can search and see where it's defined in our UI. And when you click on it, it does open UI link gsafe browsing get report URL fish. What's gsafe browsing get report URL? I'll search for that. Here's the definition. Here's the documentation. Here's the history of the lines of this code. It's just a really powerful tool, and it's really, really fast. And one of the other things that's really nice about it, especially when I'm taking notes, is that you can highlight ranges and then create a permalink. So whenever I copy and paste this and send it to someone, they'll be sent to this version of this file, and these lines will be highlighted, and that will be true for as long as SearchFox exists, which is hopefully forever or for a long time. And that's great for note taking too. If I'm referring to a line of code that existed back in 2018, I want it to still be there whenever I read those notes, so I can know what I was talking about. So a permalink's very handy. So SearchFox, I use Mercurial as my primary version control tool. I used to loathe Mercurial, but now I love it. And Git is okay, Git's fine, but I really love Mercurial now. And I know it's everyone's got their tastes. If you're used to Git, Mercurial can be a real learning curve. I've got this document, how M Conley uses Mercurial, that kind of explains how I think about Mercurial, which might make things easier. Mercurial. Trying to think if there are other tools that I use that might be handy. I use RR. RR is a time travel debugger. Nope, that's not the right site. It's this one with the dash. RR project is a free open source time travel debugger for Linux. So it allows you to, like, if you've got a crash, for example, maybe you've seen me use RR in one of these streams, but it's just super powerful. And it allows you to, you know, if you can capture a crash or bad behavior with an RR recording, then you can just like replay the execution in GDB and then go backwards and forwards. And it's really, it almost feels like cheating. RR is great. One of the things that I've started to think about using for reverse engineering, if I need to like understand how something like, you know, if I'm trying to pick apart an undocumented part of the Windows operating system or Mac OS or something, there are some reverse engineering tools. Hopper Disassembler is very powerful. I haven't used this in a long time, but I've used the Hopper Disassembler before. I don't think, did I spell that right? Yeah, Disassembler. There's also a new one called Ryzen that I've started to look into. I haven't actually had a chance to use these tools yet, but I want to give them a shot. For reverse engineering. Apparently this also has some kind of time travel debugging capability, but I haven't tried it yet. What else? What other tools? Search Fox. I mean, obviously I use the browser toolbox inside of Firefox itself. This is like the primary like UI debugging tool just for like inspecting the UI, for debugging it, for doing style tests, you know, messing around with the style sheets in the browser. Very, very powerful tool. For sites, I already listed like, oh. Yeah, sometimes if you've been running a very long session, the browser toolbox like has to grapple with all of this stuff. One of the other things I'll use is Glitch. If I'm building like a test site for something. For example, this is a site that I built to demonstrate the new picture-in-picture toggle, and we were iterating on this with the UX team. And I can show it to you. How do I share? See the live app. So this is the demo website. That was the original version, or one of the versions that we tested for the picture-in-picture toggle. This is the one we eventually went with. This one right here. But we went default right side, like this, and then if the user interacts with it, then it just becomes this little guy. And then for different video sizes, it will change the rules. Like the text gets a little bit smaller, and if it's really small, then we show just this little nubbin, and if it's super tiny, we don't show a toggle at all. So this was a tool I used. Glitch, very powerful, very handy for just like handing stuff back and forth. Oh, MozFab, yes, great, thank you, SmurfD. MozFab. So you saw me earlier today use MozFab to submit code, and this is how you generally submit code to Mozilla. You don't have to use MozFab. You can use Arc, which is what Fabricator, the tool that sort of the people who build Fabricator, they use is something called Arc. I like MozFab because it's very Mozilla specific. You can install it from pip. Pip3 install MozFab is how you do it. And then you can set some defaults if you'd like, but then submitting stuff is pretty straightforward. You tell it which revisions you want to submit to Fabricator, and it will just figure out how to do it. And it also has the ability to reorganize. Like if you've reorganized locally your commit history, it can figure that out sometimes and then reorganize the commits in Fabricator's end of things, which is nice. The other thing that's nice about MozFab is that it's not tied to Mercurial. So you can use MozFab to submit patches if you're using Git as well, which is really nice because we used to have like patch submission tools that were only Mercurial specific, but now you can use Git if you want to contribute to Mozilla. There's no problem there. So MozFab allows you to use either. Anything else? Any other tools that you want me to talk about? We're almost out of time. I didn't get to sentence case, but is there anything else you want me to talk about? In fact, you know what? 5 minutes remaining. Ask me questions. Ask me questions in the Twitch chat. Ask me questions in Matrix. If there's anything you want to know that I might have the answer to, Jane, I'm gonna butcher this. Jane Sahab writes, "Is there any way I could find an opening of interning with Mozilla?" So if we go to the careers page, let's take a look. Jobs, all categories, all positions, all locations. Let's look for student worker. So there is a Firefox security student worker position for Berlin, remote Germany, however, for 1 year. Now, it's not an interning position. We haven't actually posted any intern slots yet. I think that happens, like, this has been a wacky year, and if it's not, like, Mozilla had 2 rounds of layoffs this year. You know, we're just starting to get our feet back under us in terms of having, like, what's called headcount, or, like, things, basically budget to hire people. So, you know, the category, if you were to just like look at all positions, there aren't that many. There are some, but there aren't that many. And unfortunately, I don't see any interns listed yet. But if you keep visiting the site, eventually the intern positions will get posted here. If that helps. Any other questions? That was a great question. Thank you, Jane Sahab. While I'm waiting for questions, I will do a freestyle rap. Oh. Hamuk Nader asks, can you talk a little about your professional background? Sure. What's there to say? I studied computer science I went to the University of Toronto for both my undergraduate and graduate school. I studied computer science in undergrad. I did a double major in computer science and drama, so that's why I'm a bit of a theater kid as well. I did a lot of practical work, lighting, rigging, sound design, also stage acting, stage design. But you know, when I wasn't doing that, when I wasn't doing yoga or voice lessons, I was doing calculus and linear algebra and writing Java and C++ and stuff in school. So that is what I was trained as in my undergrad, and then in my master's degree, I was in the software engineering research group, and I was studying code review and specifically the learning effects of code review. You can find my research paper if you care. Let me see if I've got it hosted still on my blog. I think it was called The Wisdom of Peers. Yeah, here's my research paper. 2011. I'm pretty sure the last time I read this, I found like a typo or an error in like the first minute of reading it. It's kind of cringy, but if you're curious, here's my research paper. Research paper, The Wisdom of Peers. But the TLDR on my research paper was code review doesn't just teach the person who's on the receiving end of the review. There is evidence to suggest that the people who are doing the review also learn, and that you can use code review as a teaching tool in undergrad courses if you have the students review each other. That was the argument. There's still a bunch of like threats to validity of the science. The end count was really small. There was a priming effect that I didn't account for. So, you know, further research required, but that was the idea. So out of school, I started working for Mozilla Messaging, which was an offshoot of the Mozilla Corporation. Its job was to do messaging initiatives. In particular, it worked on the Thunderbird email client. So that was my first job, was actually working on Thunderbird. And then I transferred to the Mozilla Corporation to work on Firefox, and I've been there ever since. Before I worked for, you can actually find most of this in my CV. I don't know when the last time I updated this was. I did mentoring for Google Summer of Code and for an undergraduate course. I helped on a project at the University of Toronto to build like a code review tool for students. I was the assistant technical director at the drama program. I worked as a web developer for the district school board of Niagara in Ontario. But like, you can find most of my professional background here on my CV on my website. What else is there to say? I did a little bit of programming when I was younger. Like, I started writing BASIC when I was pretty young because my uncle showed me how. And then I built like my first website in the late 90s. And then I didn't program for a long time. You know, I mostly forgot about it until I went to school. And whenever I finished high school and went to, I had to apply to university. My parents were like, you got to go to university, because that's how things work in my family. Got to go to university. And the guidance counselor said, you should go into engineering, electrical engineering, because, you know, everyone gets a job if you go into engineering, which is not true. Engineering does not guarantee you a job. That is something I have learned since. But back then, my guidance counselor said, like, oh, you need to, like, go into engineering. You're guaranteed a job. Because your theater, they're like, you're doing all this theater stuff. There's no money there. You can't survive on theater. And that's mostly true. But, like, unless you're really lucky. They said, if you want a prosperous career, you got to go into engineering, because you're pretty good at math, they said. And so I went and studied electrical and computer engineering, and I was really bad at the electrical part. Like, I failed a number of courses in the electrical part. I did really well at the computer parts. You know, like, I remembered all of the moves. You know, I remembered about variables and loops and stuff. So programming wasn't so foreign to me, and I did rather well in the computer part. So I transferred out of electrical and computer engineering and switched to the arts and science faculty, and I studied computer science and drama, and that was a better fit for me. So that's it. I don't know what else to say about my professional background. I've been working for Mozilla for most of my professional career. Let's see here. Do you think it's a bright future for cybersecurity students like me? Yes. Yes, I do. More and more things are being, whether or not it's a good thing, computers are finding themselves into more and more things. We're starting to see it happen in our homes. You know, the Internet of Things, your thermostat is more like, if you buy a thermostat, chances are that it will want to connect to the internet. Your fridge might want to connect to the internet. Like, these used to be jokes years ago, but now it's starting to happen where more and more things are connecting to the internet. And, you know, we have these systems that are being set up that haven't really been properly attacked. Like, what we need are people who are, like, poking the edges, testing the security membranes and the security characteristics of these systems that we're setting up, because we're letting them into our homes without really thinking about it. You know, your internet connected toaster, what are the security characteristics of it? And we need cybersecurity engineers and pen testers and security researchers to really think these things through and think like an attacker and you know, find the holes. So I absolutely think that there's a bright future. We need people with a security mindset to penetrate, pen test, and audit all of the stuff that we're building. All the stuff I'm building. Like, I make patches for Firefox. Like, if you see a security bug in anything I'm writing, you should definitely report that. You could get a bug bounty. Jane Sahab says, on a side note, Mozilla experience is useful for other non-Mozilla jobs internships as well. OSS experience is great because you can show exactly what you did. That's absolutely true. Open source, like, if you have the ability to contribute to open source, that really is nice material for a resume, because you can point to something, you can point to a project, you can point to a commit, you can point to the lines of code itself and say, like, I did this. It's a lot harder to do that whenever you're like, your work is all behind an NDA, and you can say, I worked on a thing, but I can't ever tell you about it because it's behind NDA. Right. A last question. Is a job better or a startup? I have ideas and I'm ready to work for them. Good question. I've never worked for a startup. I've never run a startup. I don't know what I guess one of the advantages of a startup are, like, you could change the world. You have the possibility of changing the world depending on what your idea is. You could really have a humongous impact on the world, a really positive one. You get to make your own rules. It's a green field. You don't have to play by anyone else's rules except for presumably your local governments. But like you just do your own thing. There's a lot of freedom there when you do your own startup. Now, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do as I know people who have worked for a startup. It's a grind. It's not a 9 to 5. Usually, it's like, especially during the early days, it's like a lot of work because it's your thing that you're trying to get off the ground, and it's just like you're tiny and you're fighting giants, and you have to put in a lot of effort, but it can pay off huge. Working for someone else, you have to play by their rules usually. Maybe there's a lot less control. You don't have say on what it is that you're going to be working, the quality of, or the types of problems. But I've always liked the problems that Mozilla gives me, so I've been fine with it. Any other questions here? With great power comes great responsibility. It's already 16 to 18 hours, and I'm just researching. Yep. All right. Well, you know what? It's 5 minutes past the hour. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm sorry we didn't end up writing much code, but we went into a bit of a discussion. Hopefully the tools I talked about were useful. Most of them are open source. So you can use Joplin, Ubuntu, Bioboo, Mercurial, RR. Hopper is not open source. Ryzen is. Sublime Text is not open source. VS Code is. You could use that. When we looked at the menu bar stuff, we actually landed the menu bar patch. So it's nice. I think I'm going to cap it here. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 235 of The Joy of Coding. I really appreciate you being here, sticking it out. If this was your first episode, thanks for being here. If you've been watching this year, I really, really appreciate it. This has been a weird year, and it's nice to have this sort of constant rhythm, that the Joy of Coding affords me. I get to do this thing, and there's an audience, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, beloved viewers. Let me know what you thought. Smash that bell, like, subscribe, tell your grandparents, tell your kids, click the, just absolutely speed bag the rate this episode link, and let me know what you thought of this episode. And I will see you in the new year. There are no episodes until January 6th, I believe. Whatever it is, the first Wednesday in January. So skipping 2 weeks, and then I'm back, and I'll hopefully have a haircut. So be safe. I'll see you in the new year. Take care. Bye. Hang on, I gotta switch to my screen. Switch this thing. Yeah, happy holidays. I'll see you in the new year. Where's Wacky Morning DJ? Hold on a second. I gotta play my music. Bye, everyone. Take care. See ya.